Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Heavenly Parent Holy Community Oceania Hundoke. And today we have Reverend Daniel Meadows presenting on this Sunday, the 12th of October 2025, or the 21st of August in the 13th year of Chonril. Thank you all for coming, and let's begin with a bow to our true parents of heaven, earth, and humankind, Chanji Champamunge, Kambai, Paro. And let's recite our family pledge, both in Korean and English.
가족맨세 4. 전일국 주인 우리 가족은 참 사랑을 중심하고 하늘 부모님의 찬조 이사인 천주 대가족을 형성하여 자유와 평화와 통일과 행복의 세계를 완성할 것을 맹세하나이다.
Family pledge number 4. Our family, the owner of Chonril, pledges to build the universal family, encompassing heaven and earth, which is the Heavenly Parent's ideal of creation, and perfect the world of freedom, peace, unity, and happiness by centering on true love. Thank you. I'd like to share again our Father's prayer called Please allow the fallen realm to be overcome by your heart alone, Father, given on the 9th of November 1980. Beloved Father, once again we long for the day that we will realize the will you expressed after creating all the things of the universe. When we think about the existence of our sublime, precious Father, we who know how low and inadequate humankind is cannot help but pursue all value and content that can become one with that lofty will. And furthermore, when we think about that the people on this earth are those who have fallen from the ideal world of God, we think that the responsibility to take hold of oneself and to be brought to the world of goodness does not lie with heaven. Rather, it lies with humankind itself. Heavenly Father, we have realized on our own that the position with which we are faced is far too separated from the sublime, majestic position where you stay at the center of the universe, and from you, who are the Lord of the ideal centered on love. Therefore, we know that in order to fill in this great distance, a path of submission to the reasonable course of restoration, which is so filled with grief, lies before us. Our parents cannot help us with going forward on this path, nor can we receive help from anyone else. Today, as we realize that we can arrive there only if we have earnest hearts centered on God alone and toiling hearts of the original nature which are not concerned about life or death. We Unification Church family members are sensing our awesome mission of having to expand that purpose from our own individual selves to the family, tribe, people, nation, and world. When we think about the fact that from a position of being incomplete ourselves, we cannot pursue the completion of the family, and from the position of an incomplete family, we cannot pursue the completion of the nation or the world. We realize well that the situation humankind is in today is very pitiful. We know the fact that the realm of the fall covers the whole like that and dominates all the realms of life. We also know that we need our own efforts and our own insights that can overcome and go beyond this. We need a new truth that is able to discover this, and we need the strength to overcome it. But we know that such strength does not arise from loving for the sake of oneself, but rather only by loving for the sake of God. Heavenly Father, we earnestly hope and desire that you will allow us to become children who can rush towards you from this place on our own with minds of love and with a life force that is strong and of good courage. Please remain with us forever through love and ages of blessings. We have prayed in the name of the true parents, Arju. Thank you. And now let us welcome Reverend Daniel as he shares this morning.
Thank you, Reverend John. Good morning, brothers and sisters. Um, I like the prayer there that we had this morning. I mentioned one point of going from how can we go from an incomplete from a position of incompleteness or an incomplete family? How can we um, then pursue a ideal family? Or how can we pursue a true family before God? That hit some point of one of the points that I wanted to talk about. Um, I've got some readings from the Chong Book 10, Chapter 1, on what is peace. And one of the first things that talks about it says, what is the most critical issue in the world now? World wars begin and end. Wars between nations end when the fighting stops, but the war between the mind and body is unceasing. So, we're living in an age of war. I mean, most ages were ages of war, but we've got, we again sort of have these very large wars appearing. And Father mentions, that world wars, they do begin and end. And when finally the nation comes to a point of negotiating peace, then the fighting stops. But the war between the mind and body is unceasing. So as long as the mind and body is at war, then um, nations will continue to go to war. There won't be a conclusion to war and conflict until that that point of the mind and body being um, at peace or being in a state of harmony. War will continue, or maybe we can say strife will continue. Perhaps we can hope that if the majority of people have got or the people in power, maybe if they have concluded the war between the mind and body, then maybe war itself will stop. But until all people have had that conclusion, then still there's the difficulty will continue in people's lives. So peace, as they say in America, the catchphrase that Mother, I think, coined was "Peace starts with me." Peace is a beginning point that starts with my heart. Father continues, the standard of peace can be found where we succeed in conquering the body by following the desires of the mind. The foundation for peace develops where the mother and father, husband and wife, children, parents and children, and the whole extended family become eternally one. So when our mind is able to dominate our body, by following the desires of the mind or the more higher ideals, then that is a place when Father says that that peace may be achieved. So once our mind is able to sort of hold up the highest ideals and then lead our body so that our body is not, or our emotional side and that kind of thing is not guiding us through vice, or that our mind is sort of in a higher position, then our mind and body can be at peace. It'll go on to talk a bit more about this point in a second, but one of the things that struck me and that the prayer was talking about is that just because we haven't realized that point of having mind and body unity, or having the inner sort of peace, just because we haven't reached that ideal doesn't mean we aren't able to affect peace. In the prayer, it was saying, from a position of incompleteness, from a position of an incomplete family, how can we then pursue that position of true family? If a psychologist, for example, might try and help to heal their patient, even though the doctor themselves has corruption within them, has many problems within them, how can they go ahead and then attempt to heal someone? Well, in order for them to really affect change in something, they have to first acknowledge that it exists. If they do not, if there's just kind of a disassociation with what the reality of themselves and their patient is, then they can't affect some kind of positive change. But if they're able to acknowledge that side of them and come to terms with it, then they can begin to work in a way to improve it. And in that same way, that really helps them to approach the problem. I'm using a bit of a sort of an allegory there, I guess, but in the work of peace, in the work of finding ways in which how we can help conclude the wars within each other, or within the world, and then begin first of how can we begin to heal these problems within each other. We don't have to have reached that full ideal of perfection ourselves. I mean, to some degree, we have to overcome, right? And in order for someone to teach, first you have to be able to achieve. But even from a state of not reaching that point, there's still an incredible power of influencing, of positive influence in this way, without having yet attained it. I guess I'm thinking and reasoning along that way because I sometimes I look and I think, well, our movement is very, very, we have this very good ideal, and we have these very good principles and understandings. Of course, we are close, I would say, haughtily, that we are the closest movement to God, of course, because we are the ones who are following true parents. But even in that sense, it's like, well, but we have a lot of difficulty too. How can we then affect peace? How can we then approach this world stage that we're supposed to take responsibility for? But when I think this way, and when I read these words, I realize, oh, well, we don't have to have actually, we can still do this from a state of not having, how do we say, not having fulfilled, still having some incompleteness, as the prayer today put it. The foundation of peace develops where the mother, father, husband, wife, parent, and children, and the whole world become eternally one. When the whole world becomes one, so when families become one, etc., as it continues. For world peace to be realized, this foundation must go beyond individuals, clans, peoples, and races to the ends of the earth. To achieve this, we need a revolution to recreate human beings. We need a revolution to recreate human beings is a very interesting it's almost really, when I was reading that, I thought, wow, that's really that's very strong. A revolution, a Jew. That's I think what Father is saying here is that the development of blessed families and blessed family culture. That's the revolution. That's the great change. When I think about revolution, sort of makes me think about sort of the communist style revolution in Russia, where they were so their sort of feeling and heart was, let's throw off this old and terrible ways of governing people and let's have a new one that's governed by people for people. That might be for the people is like by the people for the people. I think that was the American Revolution, which is the more heavenly one, Jew. But that spirit of, we want to get rid of the oppression and we want to usher in a utopia age, one of those good ages. Of course, the communist revolution was the kind of that was the satanic version of God's ideal, but it came from that. Sometimes I feel that it came from that similar desire, that similar human heart of desire of, let's recreate things to be how they are supposed to be, or how the ideal is supposed to be. That was the sort of driving concept perhaps behind it, that they felt, well, the way we are oppressed now isn't how things should be. We shouldn't live like this, and let's try to change it. Father saying we need a revolution to create human beings. We need that spirit of original mind to come forth and say how the world works with wars and with fighting. This is not how we're supposed to be. And we need to recreate the very foundation of all human society, that is human beings. We need to recreate ourselves, recreate our families, and we need to do it with such passion and with such a revolution. That's how we can go beyond individuals, clans, peoples, and races. And that's blessed families. That's the blessed family movement. So that really, that revolution is the building of Chonilguk, of this new, well, the kingdom of heaven. And that's the importance, I guess, of education and of developing, of educating our youth, which Mother has been so putting so much emphasis on, and organizational development and external development. And all of these things need to be built up to support and to help guide our blessed families and the blessed family movement. To be that kind of, anyway, that as Father puts here, the revolution. Adieu. And there's this section here that says, if he is alone, God feels lonely just as we do, which is by itself was a very interesting sentence. I think it's hinted. This is hinted in the principle, right? In the sort of in the beginning of the principle. It's, I don't know if it says directly or not. It might, but it's certainly hinted that God was not happy to be alone. That it wasn't that God needed, or the principle is that everything needs an object partner and give and take action in order to feel happiness. To be by yourself is and with nothing to have give and take with is not adequate. At least we understand that from a human perspective, and I think for everything to really have happiness, it needs that's a subject-object relationship for joy or happiness to be to happen. So if God is alone, God feels lonely. So it is theoretically correct to say that even God likes absolute true love. Adieu. He wants a love greater than himself, an absolute love greater than an absolute being. Very interesting. This is reminds me of the Jesus' words saying that you need to be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect. God wants a absolute love greater than himself. It's a bit hard to fathom. How can there be a love greater than God? It's interesting. Like it's anyway. I think from the very Christian mindset, you think, well, is this possible? Because God is supposed to be the ultimate being and the very highest and pinnacle. How can anything be above God? And what does it even mean? A love greater than God? For isn't God love? And that's I think that's hitting the point of how a parent wishes their child to be greater than them and to do better than them. True parents said that, I think, on more than one occasion, to say you should, become like true parents, or you should even surpass like this. We true parents of doing this, but you should try and at least reach our level, but you should even consider to go beyond. I do remember that he said that I think True Father said that you must become someone that God cannot or doesn't want to live without, that God has to go to and cannot, separate from. God must come to you and this kind of thing. That kind of love that God has, you must develop yourself to be someone that God absolutely requires this kind of thing. That's a love kind of becoming overflowing and becoming sort of greater. I think from a parental heart that can be understood. That when you know have love towards your children, that can be a love that you can say, well, that's greater than me. That overflows and that becomes something that more than anything that I desire, I desire for my children, for their happiness or their you know to be with them or something like this. Uh, so I think that's sort of when I begin to think like that, I think, okay, I can kind of start to understand what's being talked about here. If what God needs is a greater and more absolute love, then even God must be absolutely obedient to it. Aren't you? What is the root of the universe's existence? Since the root and the origin of the universe is not an absolute being, but rather an absolute love, in which itself can bind an absolute being, we can conclude that heaven and earth can indeed form a world of peace. So obedience to love, what God needs is a greater and more absolute love. Then even God must be absolutely obedient to that love. Again, that hits the point of, well, how can God absolutely need you? Who would say such a thing, to say God needs me? Wow, that's a bit how do we say, your head's a little big. But if it's in the case of love, that through who you are or what you do, then you're creating this incredible love for God. Then, well, God must be obedient to that love. God must desire that love and that that well, fellowship, I guess, is a word for it. So the root of the universe is existence. This was talked about. What is the egg or the chicken? What's the root of the universe? Was it a life or love? I've heard this a few times and I forget. So I forget the origin of where this is talked about. But Father was saying, was life or love? Which one was the beginning? Because they sound like they have to be there at the same time, like the chicken and the egg. But Father says, the love, the root and the origin of the universe, is not an absolute being, but rather is absolute love. Love preceded the creation of the universe, for it was from that desire of love that the universe was envisioned and designed. This absolute love can bind an absolute being. Well, that's the case of Adam and Eve, wasn't it? That the absolute love of God bound the absolute being to undergo the providence of restoration, to bring back Adam and Eve instead of just, oh, well, we can just scrap it. It didn't work, so I'll just destroy it and start again. That's not absolute love. Absolute love said, I'm going to work this out and I'm going to bring you back and I will be your God and you will be my people, because I cannot bear to live in any other way. I desire that absolute love. We can conclude that heaven and earth can indeed form a world of peace based on this understanding that the world in essence, comes from love. It is the founding principle of the universe, of creation. So if we think like that, it gives us a lot of hope. The world can come to peace if the very fabric or the very core of what the universe has come forth from is about love. And it's easy to forget that point when we are concerning about our everyday life and about all those things that we must do and all the tricky and difficult things that we have to undergo each day. But when we bring it back and think about what is it I'm truly concerned about, or what is the most important thing, what is the highest thing, we come back to that point. Well, it's love. It's the love for me and my spouse, or the love for me and my children, and my family or my friends, and of course for God. And that when we think about that and we come back to that point, then we start to see, well, yeah, that is the main point. All the other stuff is kind of there to support that point. When we realize that everything in the universe came into existence because of love, then we will automatically deduce that it was love that brought forth peace and ideals. Now, Jude, the existence of peace and ideals sort of speaks to this very point, that the universe, that love is the more original state of being. When we have a look at the great sages and the people who studied this in the past, both religiously or secularly, when they look at what is the sort of nature of our emotion, of our understanding of ideals. Why do we have some sort of higher ideals when we very clearly don't see them always practiced, or even ourselves don't always manifest them in our life? Well, how can we have this? How do we have that? Where did this ideal come from then, if we see it so rarely in our life, or even in ourselves sometimes? And they sort of, through deduction, come to try and understand these points. A very interesting thought is that we can very easily see, and it's easy for us to point out and say, I know where the wrong things are. I can see people doing the wrong things, and I know when they do wrong things to me. So I know that there are things that are wrong out there, but when I look into myself, when I ask myself, do I fulfill the standard of a good person? Because I can say what is good, but when I apply that to myself, do I fulfill this standard? And it's very easy to then reflect upon that and say, I don't think so. I mean, maybe I think I'm a good person, but when I have a look, do I do all these things that a good person would do? Ooh, maybe not all the time. Hopefully some of the time, I do. But that when we come to understand that, and through well, it was really through very deep teachings from I think there are a lot of religious teachings and traditions have a lot of understanding and wisdom behind this kind of point of where this goodness comes from. But I really do like the teachings of the Messiah, of Jesus and true parents, where they point this out clearly and say it's because love is the main point. It's because love is the origin, and it's because the God who is our heavenly parent is in essence is love. That's the internal nature of heavenly parents. And you'll find that that resonates very well with your life and with your family. So love brought forth peace and ideals. And you. If there were an essential quality that would not change for 1,000 or 10,000 years, only when peace is realized, based on that essential quality, would that peace be eternal. And only when happiness unfolded based on that essential quality would that happiness be eternal. Eternal peace and happiness begin from true love. So this one's a bit of a mouthful, and I had to read this a few times to try and get my head around it. But can peace and love, or can peace, let's start with, can peace be an eternal thing? Can we, we can talk about nation states signing peace agreements and then not having war for a bit, or something like that, or within a nation they can have, some kind of stable environment for some period, but then we always see that peace doesn't last. Eventually, for one reason or another, nations will fall into war. And even within peaceful nations, the stable living environment goes up and down. Sometimes it's very comfortable, and sometimes it's really uncomfortable. What they talk about, positive and negative peace. So if there were an essential quality or something that would not change for thousands or tens of thousands of years, and if that essential quality, if we base peace on that essential quality, then peace could be eternal, is what Father is saying here. And only when happiness unfolds based on that essential quality would happiness be eternal. So the happiness and peace of human beings would be based upon that essential quality. If that essential quality was something that was able to remain the same for tens and thousands of years, or would not change. So what Father's saying, that essential quality should be true love. Eternal peace and happiness begin from true love. If true love is a standard by which we can say this is an unchanging value, so it cannot be diluted, or it cannot be changed, or manipulated, then that by that standard, then we can say we can realize peace upon that kind of standard, or upon or pin our happiness to that peace and that measurement. And through that way is eternal peace and happiness possible. And and the origin of that would be true love. So there's a very interesting point there. Is Father is kind of trying to not scientifically, but like sort of quantify, how do we actually, what's the formula to make that peace, to make that lasting peace? Which is why it was a difficult paragraph to read, because it sounds very formulaic, like and so I was like, what's it saying here? But Father, sometimes he thinks like that. He thinks in those in that very form, in this way. That's very Father studied all of those sciences, so he sometimes talks like a scientist. And finally, the freedom that has genuine love at its core is eternal freedom. The peace that stems from true love is eternal peace. And the happiness that springs from true love is eternal happiness. And if the whole unites centering on true love, we can conclude that this unity will be eternal. In such a case, there will be a connection leading from eternal peace to an eternal society and an eternal world. So we have all of these things in a temporary measure. We have freedom temporarily. We have peace temporarily. And even happiness is, I like to think that's less temporary, but it comes and goes is the case. But how do we reach that eternal point for these ideal positions to be in, an ideal position of freedom, of peace, and of happiness? If the whole world unites centering on true love, we can conclude that this unity will be eternal. If genuine love is at the core of everything, if we are reaching our freedom because of our understanding of genuine love on a societal level, on a national level, where they say it's really the leaders of the nations I truly love my people, therefore I will ensure that they have peace, freedom, and security. And even further saying, I truly love the people of other nations, and so we will always ensure that there is not strife between us. Then within the nation, within societies, or within our communities, if this same heart is being established of, all right, we need to approach each of the problems and the difficulties that we come across. But if we're doing that with the basis, with the core point of true love, that's the measurement by which we move and act. Then we see, okay, that connection can lead to something long-lasting, to an eternal peace, an eternal society, and an eternal world. And that's what Father talked about with the revolution to recreate human beings. We can't reach this point without some degree of recreating or re-engineering ourselves, because the way that the fall affected human beings was that we started out at the very kind of beginning of humanity. We found corruption in ourselves. So there has to be a reset, a sort of revolution of let's change that around, and let's remove that and replace it with what ought to have been there, that original heart, that original core of love. And if we do that, then we can see some kind of everlasting and substantial quality of human life, of love, of freedom, of happiness, and not just for our physical life, but true parents say that'll continue in the spirit world. It's not just the kingdom of heaven on earth, but it's the kingdom of heaven in heaven too. We are on a cosmic level of building Chonilguk, of building restoring how did he say, the cosmic Canaan? First on earth, the kingdom of heaven will come, and then naturally it will then transition to be the kingdom of heaven in heaven. So anyway, I'll conclude there. That's my sharing and my reflection on these readings from Chong Sung Yung. So thank you very much, brothers and sisters. Adieu.
Thank you very much, Reverend Wall, for sharing many good points to think and reflect on. And just for me, looking at peace starts with me, mind and body needs to be united. And I want to highlight the fact that our regular normal growth that God put in place was for our mind and body, to grow in the same direction. And unfortunately, the fall caused the mind and body to go two opposing directions. And so that just complicated a natural growth that should have taken place, because we need that growth to be able to move according to God's will and to become like God. We should move from loving from the sake of ourself to loving for the sake of God. That was the movement of growth, but the fall, we got stuck because the directions ended up being different. And so, realizing that, that's why a revolution is needed to turn it around. A revolution that turns it around towards God, not a revolution that turns it around, towards Satan, but to really, fulfill God's will. And then when I reflect on that God wanted a love greater, a love greater than me, it's got nothing to do with size. It's very easy to think size, but love is infinite. There is no size to love. So to be greater than me is I realised it's a love that's not coming from me. So it's not a love generated by God. So God gave us the ability to be co-creators, so that we are unique in all of creation, because we can become a generator of love once we've reached maturity. A generator of love, not a vessel, not a container where love, or a conduit where love just passes through us and goes on to fill everyone. So all of creation can contain God's love and passes through, and it's in this like a pool of love, but there's no new love. And so God wanted love greater, but so God created us to be able to become generators of love. We are can make love something new. So that's the essence of the father-son relationship, or the God and child relationship. When we know when two things come together that are truly supportive to each other, there's that synergy where the sum of the whole is greater than the two individual parts, and then therefore we have something greater, and then it continues to be greater because the relationships continue. Every time a new child is born, the new relationship between the parent and child takes place, and then the new generator of love has emerged that can truly represent heaven. So I started to see that, yes, we all want our child to be better than us, greater than us, because they are unique. They're not a copy of us, but they are the expression of love that has formed a new entity that can generate love. So I started to think that sort of way this morning. So thank you, and very inspiring, and open it up to anyone else who'd like to have a reflection or thought. Thank you. Yes, Reverend Stone, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Daniel. So very deep reading this morning and sharing. I thought that one of the essential messages from today was that love love has to be the root of peace and harmony in the world. And only then can it be eternal, peace be eternal. And so I thought that sort of goes together with, first of all, Jesus' message. You know, he was being persecuted, he was being killed basically on the cross. And he said, you know, please forgive them. He taught about loving the enemy. So the essence of his message was the root of it was love, right? Love is the solution, he's saying through that. And then the message coming from headquarters and, you know, Shinchunim and Trimother is the same. You know, it's the same right now. He's saying, okay, we've got all this stuff going on, you know, maybe there's been betrayal and all things like that, you know, yes, but we have to love. So it's like saying the only solution in the end to everything is when we can truly love with true love, you know. So I thought that was the essence of the message that you said today that hit me anyway. Thank you.
Adieu. Yeah. That's great. I should have added that in that exactly what you said. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, morning, Daniel. The first part of your reading just reminded me of a quote from Father. If you have a family of your own, then you qualify to work on the world scale. And I heard that quote a long time ago. It was given in 1978 in London. And what it really means is that by loving your family, your work will be expanded, not the other way around. We often think that we've got to get a mission on the world level to be able to love on the world level, but actually it happens in the family first. In other words, if we're not working on the level, then we've got to work on our family, because that's where it all happens right there. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, everyone. I think it is time now for us to offer our unison prayers, so I'll just bring that up. Thank you. Yes. All right, let's pray together. Thank you. Jew, Jew, Jew. Thank you, everyone. Thank you again, Reverend Daniel, for sharing, and I hope everyone has a great day and see you all again tomorrow. Thank you. Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you. See you.
Thank you. Bye. Have a good day.
Have a good day.